ladies and gentlemen. How are y'all doing? I am doing great. Thank you for asking. I'm sure somebody out there asked. Where are we at now? What episode is this? Oh, episode 1. Oh, welcome, I should say. Welcome to episode 123. Hope all's well out there. I know I say this so much. I try not... Whoa, someone text me. Yeah, but I just wanted to tell everybody, like I said, I've been doing a lot of these ahead of time, so I'm going to try to finish up the year, but I'm a little ahead right now. Again, this is 123. I literally just put out my episode 100, so yeah. And so I actually got 10 more weeks to get done, well, 9 after this, so I'm just trying to knock them out and just, kind of stay strong and just keep going and, try to better myself. I've noticed more as the journey goes on. I'm just evolving and turning into a better person, and I'm just learning a lot. So yeah, I thank you guys for just being with me with this journey, and anybody who supported it. Again, I say it, but I am really humble and grateful for everybody's support. So thank you. And at some point, we're gonna get this. This is gonna be a high-speed train, and we're gonna do something somehow. I just gotta be patient and just keep pushing and annoy the shit out of everybody until they hear me. So yeah, guys, let's get to our guest. It's a great episode. So thanks, guys, for listening. All right, guys, back again. So usually I kind of have the same old story how I find a lot of these guests, which is like Podmatch or Instagram or Facebook. But this is the first person I've ever had on the show that I've actually meditated with, technically. We met through a friend, a former guest on the show, Andrea. And so who's a sweet woman. I'm glad to have had her on the show. So we got to meet, and once I met her, I realized, she was telling me all about her condition, and, she has a very visible disability, but she's a very positive and, smiley person, which, I'm sure she has her pain and she'll talk about it, but I knew I had to have her on. So you want to tell us your name and, a little about yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me on your podcast, TJ. Andrea is amazing, and so I'm honored to be associated with you through her. Mm-hmm. Actually, my name is Pauline Victoria, and I live on the Big Island of Hawaii. I was born without arms and legs. I do have a little bit of a leg on my left side, but not enough to be a full leg. So, so I was born as they call it a quadriplegic amputee.
Right.
But I am very happy to say that I feel like I have lived a very full life, on mostly my terms. I think none of us can live life fully the way we always want to, but for the most part, my life has been very blessed.
Yeah, that's awesome. This is kind of like a very typical question that I've asked and answered even myself, but what part of your, everyone kind of has a period of time in their life where they knew, instantly, oh, I'm definitely different. Do you remember, when that was for you?
I think it was, I remember, fifth grade. So before fifth grade, I was mainstreamed. And for those people who aren't familiar with that term, it's essentially where a group of people or kids with disabilities are mainstreamed into a regular public school. So we go to classes alongside everybody else, but for any sort of physical education, PE, physical therapist or occupational therapy type of things, we have space and time set aside in our day to be able to participate in those activities that are necessary for a lot of us. And so I really, so I didn't know consciously how different I was. In fifth grade, they decided to release me from the mainstream program and allow me to go to my district school in the neighborhood I was living in. Mm-hmm. And so rather than being part of a group of kids with disabilities streamed into a public school, I was the only one with a disability. And I think I still wasn't conscious of it until the teachers made it a big deal. And they showed on the first day of school, they showed this really, bad movie from the 70s to like help kids. And I get the idea of how, kids with disabilities are no different than you. And, we can make them part of our community. And it was just like this effort to make me accepted. But I think it was like a weird, I think it backfired, but it was actually how I met my first friend in school. So in the movie, there is a girl and a boy, and the boy couldn't use his hands. And so the girl's like, what happened was during the Pledge of Allegiance, she put her hand on his heart because he couldn't. And so during the movie, she turned next to me and she's like, do you want me to put my hand on your heart during the Pledge of Allegiance? And I'm like, no, thank you. I was just like, oh, nice to meet you. Then we ended up becoming friends for a very long time after that.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's very, very, very awkward.
Yes.
Yeah, I had something similar, but I realized I was different well before this. But when I was in college and I wrote a paper, I don't remember what it was about, but I got like a 97 on it. So I got a really good grade. And it was the highest grade in the class. And it wasn't even that it was the highest grade. It was also that not many kids were really applying themselves in this class. It was like English something. I don't know, one of the English classes. And I did it. And she's like, do you mind if I like talk about you a little? I didn't know what she was going to say. I had no idea. I was just like, sure. She was a really nice teacher, but whatever. And so she was just like, I just want to bring attention to you guys. You guys are all, essentially I'm paraphrasing, but she's like, you guys are slacking. And here you got this kid who's visually impaired and he comes in and he does this, he does that. And you guys have perfect vision. And you guys, and again, she was really being nice. So it was a little nicer kind of what they did because she didn't show a movie. But it was like, my God, like, I don't want this attention. I barely talk to anybody in this class anyway. And now you're drawing attention to this. I was like, oof, like, God, I don't want this. But I mean, and again, some people came out, I was like, oh, nice job. But I was like, I guess I don't really care. I don't even care about this class. I just want to get out of here. But yeah, no, but
I think it's funny, and I think that's the key, right? So we can look back on these experiences and kind of laugh and snicker a little bit. It's like, oh my gosh, like, I mean, some people could be really traumatized by those experiences. Whereas, others can be like, oh gosh, that was an awkward experience in the moment, but looking back at it, I can like laugh at it or see how awkward that whole experience was. So
yeah, well, and, there's also that cringeworthiness where you're like, oh God, but yeah, But again, I said to you, like I was saying to you, like we all kind of know when we have that moment where it's like, oh, we're different. Because when you said mainstream, I haven't heard that term in so long. Where, because I think they also had another term for it too. Because I was in a class with a bunch of visually impaired kids, and then it was like, okay, you're too advanced for this because we're teaching you last year's work. Go to this class, and then it was just a nightmare because I was so behind. I had the intelligence, but it was throwing me into a whole different ocean, a whole other body of water with all these new creatures. And it's like, oh, look, survive. And it's like, oh, this sucks. And it was really where, because when you're around a bunch of people who have that issue, you none of you can really make fun of each other. I mean, it does happen in the disability community where, I'm sure someone with an amputee, maybe they have one arm or one leg and they'll make fun of the person who, doesn't have any. Like it happens in the blind and visually impaired community. Visually impaired people will make fun of the blind people. It's ridiculous. But it's still pretty rare overall because we're all struggling through stuff. But when you're in a class you're just used to it, it's kind of the unsung thing. Like it's the thing that you just don't talk about. It's like, okay, yeah, we're all visually impaired here and we're just having fun. And, if you don't like each other, it's because, you're ugly or you have a weird last name or something. But it has nothing to do with that. But then when you actually are thrown in with perfectly able-bodied people and you're just, saying, here, survive. And it's like, well, they're used to this. You're used to what you're used to. And now you're the one person in the room with, I'm the blind kid in the room. Even though I'm not totally blind, you're the blind kid, and it's a realization that's kind of hard to swallow, especially the older you get, because you know when you're young, you're kind of like dumb to the world. You don't really know what is what and what isn't. But then once you start to grow up a little bit, you mature a little bit, puberty and all that hits you. It definitely gets harder.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, but I feel like though those experiences shape us
Oh
into
yeah.
the adults we have become. Also, right? Because like I just finished up this 6 week emotional intelligence class,
Mm-hmm.
and the last week they talked about these triggers and traumas, and I raised my hand and I said, as a parent, I feel like there's no escaping traumatizing my child.
Yeah.
And I feel like, how do you not do that, or how do you deal with being a part of their trauma as they get older? And so what they said is that, yeah, you're right, there is no way you're going to escape traumatizing your child. Even with the best intentions, it's going to happen. But going through those traumas actually shape who they are, and the journey, it's part of the journey that they're on in life. And so kind of looking at it from that perspective of like, wow, we've gone through a lot, and we have endured, we've survived, we've thrived in a lot of situations, more than survived, we've excelled, we've failed, and yet all of that, as awkward and as uncomfortable as that those experiences have been or could be, it's part of our journey and our experience and perspective, and who we are and who we are becoming.
Yeah. Now, have you ever had the moment? Because again, your situation is pretty rough from the outside, and I mean, I know it is rough regardless. But have you ever had that moment where you bumped into somebody who was worse? And I've, like example, of course, I've worked and have friends that are totally blind. Also, I've interviewed a bunch of people with many disabilities that I perceive to be worse than mine. But as an example, I had a guy on named Phil from the UK. He's an entrepreneur, great guy, but he's paralyzed from the waist down. And he is a story I tell a lot because it kind of encapsulates the whole thing for me. Is that he bumped and he was really feeling low because he was 19. He drove himself off the road, a motorcycle, into some train tracks. Paralyzed himself at 19. He was kind of being rebellious, and now he realized he just ruined his whole life. And he bumped into a guy who was paralyzed from the jaw down. Now, Phil can use his shoulders. This guy can't. He can only use his muscles in his face. And the guy was cracking jokes with him and saying like, "Hey, dude, lighten up. Like, you can use your arms." And like that guy kind of changed his whole outlook on life. So have you bumped into anybody who I guess you would perceive to be more worse off than you, that kind of made you more happy about your situation, or just appreciate and love who you are more?
It's the Jerry Springer complex, right? Like, oh, I watch those shows because I can be like, wow, my life is way better than theirs.
Yeah.
It is. I think what the key word that in your question was perceived, right? Because I think if we just take all sorts of disabilities and put them side by side, what difference between each one in terms of severity and limitations and quality of life really is about the perception. So, for me, I feel so blessed to be in this body. I've met people who are paralyzed, quadriplegics from the neck down, and, they have all their arms and legs. So on the outside, they look complete, but I feel like I have more mobility, or like I have no idea what it's like to be visually impaired or blind. Like for me, I could perceive that to be worse off than me, but there are things that you can do that I can't do, right? So I feel like it's all about perception, and I feel like when we can bring it back to ourselves and really focus on who we are and what our capabilities are, not in comparison or in relation to anybody worse or better, then that's where we can really set ourselves free. Because inherent in that question is like, it's used for good in the sense that, like, yes, well, I feel so much better about my life because I don't have to live in your body. But at the same time, we can turn that around, and it could be very, we could use it as like, wow, look how much better they are in their life, and my life sucks. So it's a very, I love the question, but it can be very dangerous because, whenever we compare ourselves, we can get a complex of, either I'm better or I'm worse. Right. And it could lead to a place that we don't always want to go, and it doesn't serve us. So I feel like it's, I would challenge people. So what other people do, what we do for others, able-bodied people, is we bring perspective. Like your teacher used you to bring perspective to the other students in the class, right? Yeah. And so we do bring perspective shifts into the world without having to also like be the, I guess, not victim, but there's something there about we can be the perspective shift that people need, but we don't have to be at the effect of it.
Yeah.
Right. So I feel like, and we all need those perspective shifts in our life. Sometimes it's not about disability. Sometimes it's like, oh my God, I can't believe you lost your husband and your 2 kids in that car accident. And you're still going, and you're still wanting to spread a message of hope and healing after you had to go through that ordeal. Right. So for me, that could be a perspective shift that I would never want that experience, but that experience could be used to shift my perspective as much as we can be used to shift other people's perspective.
Right. I just mean as far as when we're like emotionally at our lowest and we're starting to really feel bad about ourselves, sometimes we bump into that one person that wakes us up and says, hey, like, look, it gets way worse than this. And like in my case, totally blind would be my equivalent. And like I said, in Phil's case, there was a guy who was he was paralyzed from the jaw down, whereas he's paralyzed from the shoulders down. And he was so positive and just a sweet guy, and just changed his whole outlook on, okay, look, yes, I guess that you can spin it and say like, okay, yeah, you can use it in a negative way and say like, see, all right, I have shoulders and my arms do work. And in my case, my eyes do work a little bit. I am better than you, but that's, obviously that's not where I was going with it, but.
Well, and oftentimes I think the emotional down is because we're feeling like we can't.
Yeah.
Like we're feeling very victimized by our disability.
Yeah.
So, and we are comparing ourselves to others. And I feel like that can often, like, that's where my mind goes whenever I have those down moments, like where I'm in the trenches of like the ugly cry and the frustration and the anger toward God. It's because why can they just pick up a pencil when they drop it and I can't? Why can they shower whenever they want and I can't? Why can they get themselves food whenever they want and I can't? So it's actually those thoughts of comparison that spiral me down.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Yeah, I mean, you got to try to stay away from it as possible, because like even when I do it, like I never compare myself to them, but when I interview somebody who's going through something, it does make me appreciate if someone's, I had a friend who has spina bifida and he's got leg braces, like it made me, or people who are paralyzed, it made me like appreciate my legs more. Like it makes me, I never look at them as like, oh, you're beneath me. I start to actually, when I'm evolving, I'm appreciating the things that I'm going away from the things that I don't have and appreciating the things that I do have. And yeah, I mean, I guess you can that's the thing. You can make a case positively, negatively for literally everything. You just got to go basically where someone's heart is at and where the intent is. And I never look at it like, oh boy, like thank God I'm not deaf. I just go, look, I'm so happy that my hearing is much better now because of my eyes being so bad. Like, yeah, I still get depressed. I still, whatever with my eyes, but I am grateful that I don't have, lupus or whatever. Like, I'm just happy I don't have these other things. It has nothing to do with, you have that and I don't. No, because again, I wouldn't interview these people. I wouldn't talk about it. I wouldn't, because I try to learn. Again, I have no idea what it's like to be an amputee other than from people who I've had on who are amputees, and I'm super fascinated. Again, the reason why, like I said, when just talking to you for those few minutes on that thing we did the other day, it was just really amazing to see someone, and it's very humbling as a person just to see someone who could easily cry and could easily give up on life, and you're just so positive, and it's it's magnetizing, because it's like, wow, like this person like could be so, you have every right to be angry and sad, but you're using everything you've learned to just be positive and happy and put out great energy in this world where there's people that have just about everything and are so negative and do nothing but put bad energy into the world. And like I said, you're a person that should be revered for just that, because it's something that is lacking in humankind nowadays, of being able to put yourself in other people's shoes and just being kind to others and just putting good out energy, even if your story is a little shitty.
Mm-hmm.
And
I love what you're saying, because I feel like what your podcast does is it creates the bridges of empathy for people.
Yeah.
And so what your curiosity is a catalyst for understanding, and that is really beautiful.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, and again, I don't, I like to learn with the audience, because I don't know what it's like to have these other conditions. I really don't. I only know what it is, what I have. I know what it's like to go through excruciating pain. I know what it's like to be depressed. I know what it's like to be bullied and all the things because of it. And I know what it's like to just struggle in every way possible. But it doesn't mean I know. I can try to put myself in your shoes. I know what it's like to, have no skin and be in agonizing pain. But yeah, that's not what it's like to go through some of these chronic illnesses, like fibromyalgia or whatever. But I can imagine what it's like to be in pain. And so you got to use your story and compare it, and just don't look at it as like what is better and what's not. It's just like, okay, just have empathy and give a shit. And that's something that like people with disabilities have, that is such an underrated quality that you cannot buy. You cannot just obtain it out of nowhere. It is something that we're born with, beyond just our inner strength and all that, but like empathy. And again, I said it to you on that whole thing, and I've said it on here. It's kind of funny about how we're perceived to be the broken people, but we're always the ones that are trying to help people and do good. And a lot of times we do it and not even making time for ourselves, and we haven't even healed ourselves. We're so bent on just trying to help others, because that's what helps us get us through the day, because it's nice to feel needed, because there's certain areas in the world that we're not, like for me, and for you, I'm sure as well, we can't drive. So, I mean, I don't know if you can't, but I definitely can't drive, and I am never going to be needed in that area. And I would love to be the one that just drives my friends around who are visually impaired or have a disability, but I can't. I have to accept that is like one of my very few limitations, and not go with what people tell me my limitations are. So it's, like I said, I thrive in being around people like you, because it makes me a stronger person. It makes me appreciate who I am and what I've been through, and then, and not focus on what I lack. Again, that's one of the reasons why I've told people, I think I'm just going to cancel all like any kind of news things on my phone, because every time I read it, it's just bad news and just negativity. And I've gotten a lot of negative people out of my life. Like, I just want positivity. And it sounds cheesy and like hippie-ish, but it's true. I just want to I'm just tired of the negative shit in my life. I have enough crap to be sad and angry about, but I can't sit and dwell in it, because that's how you become just super angry and suicidal and all these things that come from it.
Yeah, I agree. But I think, like what you said is, what you said earlier is that we're so focused on healing other people that we forget to heal ourselves. But I feel like the place where you're at and the place where I'm at, we've had to do a lot of healing with ourselves.
Sure.
And it's important to focus on healing yourself, because when you can come from your disability from a healed place, that translates to other people, and they feel that, and they're like, oh, it's not just us blowing smoke up their, butt, because we want to focus on them. But we are able to help people because we are healed and we are well adjusted in our current circumstances
Yeah.
that we know we can't change. I can drive, by the way.
Oh, you can.
And yeah, and that's such a blessing, right? But there are a lot of things that I can't do. Like my friends wanted to, like, I'll go do a girls trip to a different island. Well, it's a little more complicated than that for me. I can't just hop on a plane and, get in someone else's car. There's just a lot more things that I have to do. So there are a lot of times when I say I'm going to pass on this opportunity because it's too much, or it's just not really possible. Or like I live in Hawaii, going to the beach and running into the waves with my son and playing, and that's something that it takes a lot more effort to do every little thing. And so, but I'm able to say these things and recognize my limitations from a place of healed, from a place of it is what it is, because, and you just said it, you accept yourself. And really, when we're come to a place of full acceptance, that's when I think the healing can happen, and does happen. But it's this understanding that we are here. Like, I love that you're right. A lot of people with disabilities just want to serve the world, and in whatever capacities that they can, or what they feel like they're called to serve the world. But oftentimes, we need to, and this not just goes for people with disabilities, it goes for people without disabilities. You need to be able to serve the world from a place where that you're already healed and feel empowered by, right? Because broken doesn't fix broken.
No, not at all.
No, so we have to. It is very important to work on ourselves in order for us to be able to serve the world in a bigger capacity. And I feel like that's what you're doing, because you accept yourself so much that you have the capacity to put yourself in other people's shoes when you interview them and really hear their experiences and validate their experiences, even if you don't know what those experiences are. So I'd give yourself a little more credit. You were fully, that we don't. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm not saying currently. I'm just saying there's a lot of people who really do, and I've been in those at that point where there's times where I was dangling from a ledge mentally, but I'm still talking people off the ledge. I'm not saying currently, but I mean, there's a lot of times that we try to help people even when we don't know how to help ourselves. And you're right, that's not just disability, but I mean, people with disabilities are always trying to help people, and we have so much on our plate as it is. And sometimes we take away from what we're trying to do just because it's a distraction or whatever, but we just try to help others. And sometimes we don't even know how to help ourselves, but we're so bent on helping others because it is some kind of joy we get out of life. And sometimes you got to hold on to the littlest joys that you can get. But there's, again, and I'm at a better place now. Again, I still deal with my depression and stuff, but I'm at a better place.
But I think
currently.
Yeah, but I think because we've experienced those dark places, those shadows of life, it makes us more capable to be empathic for those that are going through it now, right? Because you know what it's like to be in the dark. You're willing to go into the dark to go get somebody to bring them out.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, no, I mean, that's another reason why, because again, I could have come on here and just talk about amputees and just look up stuff, but I'd rather have people who have the experience. I was just saying this to somebody. I did a podcast for someone else, and I said one of the things that bugs me is I hate when people say, I'm let's say a mental health professional. And it's like, then you look into their background, and it's like, what is your experience with mental health? Because if you haven't been suicidal, if you haven't been in the darkest places where you've hated yourself, hated others, hated happiness, hated anything, you're not really much of a professional. I'm not saying you can't help, but me personally, as a person who has struggled with it, I would take, to me, a professional is not a person who went to school for it. It's a person who actually just lives it and struggles with it, but also finds a way to pull some good out of that dark place and uses it to help others who are struggling. To me,
Yeah.
those are professionals. So the same thing with with this. Like I want to talk to somebody who suffers, who who has been through this. Like I said, I don't want to talk about what it's like to be an amputee because I'm not one, and I'd rather let people hear it from a person who is. So again, I ignorantly said that you don't drive. So how do you drive? Because a lot of people would love to know, just as I would.
Yeah, so I'll describe it the best way I can since this is just an audio.
Right.
So I actually drive. I do have maybe about maybe 6 inches or maybe 5 inches of a stub from my shoulder down, and so I do have a little bit of a kind of an arm. And so I use kind of like a joystick, or how pilots drive an aircraft,
Right.
where they push forward to go to accelerate, pull back to brake, turn. They turn it like to 180 degrees to the right to go right, and 180 degrees to the left to go left. So, or 90 degrees, sorry, not 180. And so that my joystick works like that, like a pilot's tools. And then, so I use my arm to do that. And then so those are the primary driving functions that you need. Signaling, honking the horn, wipers, because I live in a rainforest, and brights, your lights, turn on your brights on your headlights. That's all done with these little toggle switches to my left that I can push up or down to turn on and handle different functions. And then I have a whole panel of buttons that I use a mouse stick to use for any secondary functions, like opening the window, turning on the radio, adjusting my temperature in the car. So, those things can be done with my mouse stick. So that is essentially how I drive, and I just take my chair and roll it in through the ramp and park it at the driver's seat area, and it locks my chair in that way, and then I'm able to drive from my wheelchair. And it's like, it took me 7 years to get my license. And
was there any pushback with that? Because I'm sure from the outside, people are just going to there's no way in hell. Just allowing you on the road sounds dangerous. So I'm sure there was a lot of fight to get that to happen.
Yeah, so it was through the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation. Every state has one. I was in California at the time, and it required me to go back and forth from Northern California to Southern California on their dime. They paid for me and an attendant to go down every quarter, so every 3 months, take care of hotel, take care of food, take care of ground transportation and air transportation. And they, like 3.5 years in, they're like, Pauline, look, this isn't working. But they didn't even say that, because they're like, Pauline, and I'm like, nope, don't even say another word. Because I knew they wanted to give up, because, logically it made sense. We've been working at this for almost 4 years. It was like 3.5 or 3.75 years that we were working on trying to figure out all the details of how to drive. And I was like, no, please, you can't say this, because you said if there was any hint that I could do this, we would not stop trying to figure out a way. And I don't know how, but I know there's a way. And I just need you to hold on a little bit longer. Well, in those 3.5 years that they were trying to figure out how I drive. See, I drive my wheelchair with my little tiny foot. And so they always thought that, okay, well, you drive your wheelchair with your foot, you'll drive a car with your foot. But my foot and my wheelchair, it requires fine motor control, but so does driving. But I use my base of my hips down to also handle my balance. Well, in a car, when you're turning right or turning left, your balance is shifted a lot more than it is in a wheelchair. So for 3.5 years, they kept trying to help me drive with my foot. And I kept saying, I really feel like we should try my arm. I really feel like we should do this. But they couldn't see it. Like, I was willing to think outside the box, but they couldn't see it. And oftentimes with our disabilities, we're often having to deal with people who have such closed-minded thinking that And we're so used to thinking outside the box that it's really hard to convince people to see our vision. And so three and a half, 3.25 years into this thing, they were like ready to give up. And I just had such a belief that I kept them hanging on. Well, about a couple months later, a woman without arms and legs, literally no arms and legs, who drove her wheelchair with her arm, came in to be evaluated for her car, to be able to drive. And within a few hours, they approved her. And so the next time I came up, they're like, Pauline, we're going to try driving with your arm.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. And within a few hours, I was approved.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, I love what you're saying there, because that, and again, I sometimes I think a lot of people with disabilities tend to go on this like witch hunt war of it's us versus able-bodied people, and I don't think that's not fair, because there's a lot of great able-bodied people that do great things, and I'm not just talking about parents and caregivers, just people that just care. But there is a certain system that's like in place in the workplace and wherever, where it's just like their mindset is for them and not for us. And it's hard. And again, I understand there's so many of us in the disability community. It's hard to accommodate every one of us, but it's just have an open mind and have the ability to care and just try to understand, because they look at it like, oh, because in my case, I've had people say, you can't do this because, well, I tried it blindfolded, or I did this, and I've seen people try to do this stuff. And it's like, are you shitting me? Like, you have the realization, again, I'm not totally blind, but it was more for blind people specifically, but it still affected me. But it's like, you can't do this because I tried it blindfolded. It's like, yeah, but you have the realization of being able to take that off. Mentally, you're not checked, like, you're not in our world. It's not all or nothing. Or, there is, you either try this and fail. Like, you could fail at it and just take your blindfold off and succeed at it the way you normally am. But guys like us people like us, we don't have a choice. So we will find a way around it. As I've said so many times, like, being a person with a disability is like trying to get in a house that has no doors or windows, but we have to find a way in. And people just look, and people, it's like, well, that sounds ridiculous, but it's like, no, to you it's ridiculous, because that's why it's really hard for us to accept our what we accomplish, like having our own house. Like, for you, driving is a real accomplishment, even though driving is a normal thing for the average person. But for you is an actual real accomplishment. And sometimes we have trouble appreciating and accepting our accomplishments, like me having my own place and working and doing that. But it's like, yeah, but I'm one of 25% of us who are working. Like, you don't understand. That's not a thing for us. And I've had to go through every hurdle. I've had to be super humiliated and embarrassed to have people talk to me like I'm stupid, even though my problem is my eyes and not my brain. And it's just like, it's a very, just a lack of, of course, empathy, but there's a lot of things that just stop telling me what my hurdles and what my limitations are, because you just don't know what my limitations are. I will find them, and trust me, they will bother the hell out of me, but I'm going to find them. You're not going to tell me what mine are. And it sucks when, someone like you has to wait 7 years to drive. And I'm sure deep down in your mind, you were pretty like, I don't know if I could do this. But once you...
Oh, no, I knew. Okay. I just didn't know how. When you can have that conviction, that faith of like, I know there is a way. Like, I had no doubt in my mind that there was going to be a way. I may not have known how, but I absolutely know with every fiber of my being that I could do it. And I think that's one of our superpowers as people with disabilities, is we can see things that other people can't. Like, I mean, there have been, like, I remember when we moved to Hawaii, and by logic, this would not have been possible, but we landed in Hawaii. We had me, my husband, our 2 teenage kids, and our 4-month-old baby, my wheelchair, a car seat, all our luggage. We each had 2 luggages each, including my baby, because we wanted to get the luggage. This is when luggage was still free, right? And a stroller. And we rented an SUV. and my husband said, okay, I'll take this kid and all of our stuff and drive it to the other side of the island, which was 2 hours away from where we landed in the airport, and then come back for you. So it would have been a total of at least 5 hours with me and my teenage daughter and our baby waiting at the airport. And I'm like, oh no, you are not leaving us here. We will get everybody and everything in this car. I don't care what it takes. And by golly, we did. I have no idea. Like, when I look back at that, I'm like, how did we even do that? That was a crazy ask of me. But I was not like, I'm like, you are not leaving me here for 5 hours. And we made it happen. And so I'm like, we could do this, we could put this thing here. And I feel like people with disabilities are able to see things that other people can't necessarily always see because of the different, like, I love your analogy, getting into a house with no windows and doors. You want to find out how to get into that house? Ask a disabled person. Every think tank should have at least one person with a disability on it.
Yeah. That's absolutely. And I don't, like I said, I just, the reason why I thrive around them so much, because they're so strong. Again, like, talking to you, it's so awesome to just hear someone who has that drive and that passion, because, again, like, I brought up this story. There was this one woman, she was just, when I was living in Philly at the time, she was like in her like motor scooter wheelchair thingy, and she was flying around town. She didn't have legs, and she was just flying around. And I just remember being in awe of her, because she knows people are going to stare. She knows people are judging her. She knows, like, everything is harder for her, but she was smiling. She was just enjoying the day. And it was just like, I saw, it was, it was a quick 5-6 second thing, but I was just like, wow, that woman is awesome. I don't know her. I mean, she, could have been a mean lady. I don't know. But just what she was doing in that minute just made me just, like, feel happy to be alive and just to have a disability. And it's the strength.
And I think that's another I think that's another superpower of ours, is like, we can, we're able to show up in the world as joy, as fully living, as thriving, and even in the face of our circumstances. And, I know, like, in the disability world, there was this big debate, like, inspiration porn. Don't call me an inspiration, but we like to call you like, there's this big debate around it being called an inspiration, right? That debate, right?
Right. It's kind of like how a lot of like basketball players, celebrities, they say they're not role models, and it's like a huge debate with them if they are or aren't, and that's how they get away with, like, oh, I'm going to do a bunch of debauchery and but I'm not a role model. But it's like, yeah, but a bunch of kids look up to you, like, you can't help that.
Right. And so what I love about what you're doing with your show is that you're embracing us as inspirations, like, for yourself, for other people, because I don't have a problem with someone calling me an inspiration, because it is not my disability that they find inspiring. It is my attitude that they find inspiring in the face of my disability. So you and I wear our circumstances on the outside, and we can show, and how we show up in the face of those circumstances is what people find inspiring. So if you're disabled, I guarantee you put someone like me or someone in a wheelchair like me, and we both walk into Target, and one person is, like, angry and like telling the people, like, stop staring at me, or making like F you comments, F you for looking at me, or what, you think I can't do it, like, having that attitude. And I was also going about my day, going around shopping, and, like, hey, like, being happy and joyful. They would call me inspiring. They would not call the other person inspiring.
Yeah.
And but we both have a disability.
Yeah.
So what's the difference maker?
No, yeah, I think we absolutely are. If someone's inspired, they're inspired. And again, not everybody puts it the right way, and but you just gotta, again, you gotta pick up on intent, and that's one of the things we're good at, like picking up on. A lot of things we're that's why I always joked about, like I said, like the real blind people in the world are the people that are just so biased and can't see what's right in front of them. As a person who can't see that all that well, I pick up on a lot of things that most people don't, and it's right in front of them. It's right there. That's why I don't have any political bias. That's why I don't, I'm not racist or I'm not whatever, because I don't give a shit about all that stuff. And I've always said, like, I wonder what it would like if the world was just blind for a year. Like, how could people judge each other because they could only go by voice and touch? As far as, like, I mean, you can go by smell and taste too, but in general, the two you would use is touch and hearing. And you couldn't judge. You couldn't be racist. You could, but who would you know is what and who wasn't, other than the people you already kind of know in your circle. But let's just say you did the little, like, Men in Black pen thing and you wiped everybody's memory as far as what people look like, and now you're totally blind. Like, you could just be mean to people, but you're just being mean. You can't do it based on someone's race or their gender or whatever.
Right.
And it's just, yeah, it's so nice to just, have that inner strength and just, like, yeah, I don't mind being, a role model for somebody or helping someone, even if they're not a person with a disability, even if it's just the mental health part or just someone who's going through something. They look at me and go, like, man, like, what am I sad for? Like, this person has something to be sad about, and I'm sitting here bitching about this. I need to get off my ass. Like, any way we can help anybody to just who's down in the dumps, whatever. And again, sometimes your energy can be very, very infectious, and because people automatically want to look at us like, oh, we're the sad story, like, oh no, and it's like, dude, I don't need that shit. I'm good. You don't got to hold my hand. I'm all right. I'm fine. I'm not saying I'm, always happy. I'm always like this, but I'm appreciating that I am having a good day, that I can see some and all these different things. Just treat me normal. And if you see me as a role model or whatever, cool. Like, that's fine. I'm all for it. Like, I had a moment recently with a guy. My grandma thought it was mean or whatever, and I took it as it was. But there was a guy at a Dunkin' Donuts drive-thru, and he was like, "Can I pray for your eyes?" And I'm like, go ahead, dude. Make it quick. He meant, because
Make it quick.
because his intent was to mean, he meant well. I don't think he was judging me. I don't think he was being a dick. He really seemed like a nice person. He's just super religious, but he was trying to be nice. And I'm like, look, man, just make it quick and let's go. And he's like, all right, and it was over. And I was like, thank you, I appreciate it. But, like, I wouldn't do that every day. I wouldn't be 10 times a day. Like, every so often, whatever. But it's like, again, you have to pick up on what someone is trying to put at you or give at you. Like, if you think the person is judging you, then yeah, you don't deal with it. But I know he meant well. I'm not saying it didn't annoy me. It did, but it's like, he's trying to be nice, so whatever. If it makes him feel better or whatever. And again, I'll take the prayers, I guess. It's not going to help, but thanks. I appreciate you.
Yeah, and I think, that's part of when we heal ourselves, when we can come to a place where we're, like, fully acceptant of who we are and our circumstances.
Yeah.
We can separate other people's reactions to us and not own them. Like, I know anytime someone cries, prays, worships, is looks disgusted by engaging with me or just seeing me,
mm-hmm.
that it's there. That's a reflection of where they're at, not me.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to own their reactions. I'm not going to feel bad when someone wants to cry for me and feels really sad and doesn't know how they would handle it, because it's about them. I don't care if people find me inspiring. I don't care if people look at me with disgust or, it doesn't matter, because it's not mine. It's theirs. But I can have that kind of strength to draw the boundary and really understand what is mine and what is not. Because, in a way, when we come into this world that's not really made for us, we are treated as if we are broken. It's in our systems. It's in our, what people expect of us. It's in our school systems. It's in the receiving of benefits. Yeah. It's all, we're treated as if we're broken.
Yeah.
And to be able to say, I rise above that. I reject that outlook of who I am. That takes us an inner strength about a person, to say, yeah, like, because I host a monthly call. It's a monthly live Zoom call that I host once a month. It's called Crypt Chat, and anyone is welcome to sign up and join with us. But every month I take a topic that is relevant to people with disabilities. Usually it's about anything. Like this month was about money, and we talked about it. And we talked about how many times do we stop ourselves from really fulfilling the potential that we know we have inside us because we want to make sure we keep our benefits.
Yeah. No, that's something I've talked about so much. It's, yeah. I mean, and
Right.
and the fact that there's the people that look at us and it's like, well, like, like for where I work, and it's like, well, if you get laid off, you have your disability. It's like, you know how stupid that sounds? My disability covers my rent. That's all it does. Like, you think that, what? You think just because I get, don't you understand? Like, if I make, because I have it pretty well right now where I make almost the max and I get a decent amount every month and I get a decent check. But if I make any more, like I'm making $13 an hour or something like that, $13.50, but I'm only working 32 hours a week. Now, that's nice because I don't have to work Thursdays and I don't have to work the weekend. Well, we don't work the weekend there anyway, but it's nice to have these days off. But yeah, I kind of want to work more. But if I do, I lose my impeccable insurance that covers everything, and I lose whatever it is, $1,100 a month or whatever it is I get. It's like, it's not worth it. Now, would we want to lose our disability if it meant we would make a lot more and we'd be happier and so? Sure, but it's such a security blanket, and companies are not going to accommodate us for that. And it's just it's something that, again, disability isn't everything, but it is something for us. But it's also not the end all be all. And yeah, it's amazing how much, people don't understand, like, the money things. Because again, and it's also what a lot of people don't know is that it's also pending on what your disability is. Because I know a lot of learning disabilities, they're not allowed to work a lot of hours. But like for like visually impaired and blind people, we kind of have a little more leeway. We can kind of work as many hours as long as we don't go over a certain amount monthly. Well, actually, more adds up towards the end of the year, especially when you get the SSDI. But yeah, there's so many traps and so many things in there that you could easily lose your disability, or at least get lost in the shuffle where they just like stopped accounting for what you're making, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, now you owe us $6,000. It's like, how am I paying that?
Right.
And it's like, well, we're gonna just take out $600 of your $1,100 every month. It's like, well, there goes my money issues, like it's, yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And so we actually, the way the system is currently set up, it says stay broken.
Yeah. But then remember what we were talking about the other day when I was talking about the word disabled, and if you add you take the D off, it just means you don't work. If you're going to disable an alarm, it no longer works. Well, we're perceived as the people who don't work, or we're broken. And again, I'm not a word person. I am not for banning words. I think people are way too sensitive these days, and everyone.
Me too.
Everyone is coming up with something. And it's like, look, man, I got a lot of issues, and at the end of the day, whatever. You want to call me the blind kid, I don't give a shit anymore. It does not bother me.
Right.
It's,
yeah.
I am.
I know. Someone's like,
I'm just gonna say, I'm so happily a straight white male. That's just what I was born. That's what I am. That's what I'm into. I can't help any of those things. I'm not proud to be any of those things. I don't give a shit about any of those things. I'm just who I am. And the problem is we're so divided. And again, that's a big problem in a disabled community, is we're so focused on our own conditions. A lot of times we don't come together to help each other. And that's why it's like, you could easily divide and conquer our community because of, there's so much shame and hatred and things within us that we tend to just not support each other enough. We're doing it, like obviously what you and I are doing, Andrea, even though she doesn't have a disability, but her daughter. But there's just not enough of us supporting each other. And it's just, I don't know, it's really sad. I've learned it by getting into this, and it's something that I'm trying to do my part to just try to like bridge that gap for us, because, and again, I can only do my part. I can't do it by myself, but yeah.
Right. And Yeah, I appreciate your perspective because I never thought of it that way. Of like that our community is so fragmented. It could be fragmented based on disability. It could be, now you hear a lot of like, well, we want to give, it's always the white disabled people that are being featured and not the people of color with disabilities being featured, because there's a whole other level there, or LGBTQ disabled, or, but at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We all want the ability, like the Constitution says, life, liberty, and for the pursuit of happiness. We all want that.
Yeah.
But even if you're like at 18 years old, I was like, oh, go to the security office, go get your benefits. So that said to me already, like, it's okay. You don't have to work. Yeah. You don't have, because we know that you may not have that much to contribute, or it will be harder for you to contribute, or we just don't want you in the workplace because it'll make other people feel uncomfortable. Right. So like you could have, there's a lot of subconscious messages that are being given, and I'm not going to say that they should just get rid of benefits, but maybe change the way the system is. So the fact that I have a paying job that pays me more than the substantial gainful amount of $1,200 something a month doesn't make my disability go away.
No,
right? I still need my $40,000 wheelchair. Right. I still need someone to come in, $2,000 a month extra to pay for someone to come in and help me do my daily basic living needs. So, I think benefits, there's a time and place for it, but how the messages that we receive, and most of the times it's subconscious from society, is that we're broken. And so it really is, and I'm really into people working on themselves. Primarily my clients are people without disabilities, visible disabilities, but, some of them do have something here or there, but it's not, so I'm really big on self-awareness and really helping you raise the level of your self-awareness, because only from there can we help others from a place of power.
Yeah.
And so that's why I push that kind of thinking of like, work on yourself first, and, gain that such inner strength and conviction about who you are and what you can bring to this world, that even when the world is saying, here, we want to hand this to you because we don't think you could do it on your own, you could still stand strong and be like, great, I will take your benefits and I will still move forward in my potential, like that won't stop me. So I think there's a lot of the learning that needs to happen, but that's just because we're human, and the disabilities are just an added experience that actually has so much wisdom and gifts that it can offer us if we are willing to look at it that way.
Yeah, I feel like it should be what jail is meant to be, which it isn't, where, meaning the rehabilitating part, where it's like you get to a certain point. Like, obviously disability is great, especially when you're young, and you can save it, or it's obviously the insurance is there. Maybe it helps your parents who are help taking care of you. It's there. But at a certain point, there should be places, and there are, but they're not really that great, where it's like, we'll help you get a job, we'll help you get, better benefits in other ways, and we'll help you find just ways to make real money. The problem is when you go to these little places where they help you get jobs, they're helping everybody. It's like, how many times someone tried to say, like, hey, there's a job available, would you like to be a forklift driver? It's like, are you fucking dumb? Like, really? Like, this is why you, like, I literally worked at a place for about 3 hours. They sent me to one of the most dangerous places where there's cranes everywhere. There's just, one guy actually said to me, you're just going to have to be careful on a daily basis because there's things constantly coming through here that could kill you. I'm like, oh, great. My eyes already suck.
Oh.
And so this is the kicker. So then the guy they had train me was deaf. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. And he's just doing stuff. And I'm like waving my hands behind his head. I'm like, well, he can't hear me. And so then the guy eventually came over. He's like, can you even do this job? I'm like, look, you have really thick gloves on my hands. So my touch is gone. My hearing already sucks. My allergies suck. So I can't smell. And you have hearing protection on me. So I said, unless I can lick the buttons, we're pretty much screwed. Because I'm like, because you basically impaired me entirely to where I can't do anything. And it was flipping logs and all. It was something ridiculous. But it was like, this is one of these companies that sent me there. And I really feel like if there was just people that understood, or people like us who were just help put it, because the job market is so closed-minded that they don't, there's people that I know that just will like, oh, I lost a $20 hour job and I just got another one. It's like, well, that sounds nice, but you know how much I have to fight and earn, like really fight for what I have. And I think, but at the same token, with the disability stuff, it's kind of like what the stimuluses did for people. It makes people lazy. It's like, oh, here's $2,000. Not. I shouldn't even say the stimulus. It was the unemployment that people were getting like $600 a month or $600 a week, and that made people go like, why the hell am I going to work at McDonald's or work at some bullshit restaurant where I'm getting tips is all I'm getting and like plus $2 an hour when I can get $600 a week? It's like, and it was good for a lot of people, but it also made people so lazy. And then it was like you had this real part where, oh, now no one wants to come back to work. It's like, well, why would they? They're at a shitty job that treats them like crap, and they're getting paid horrible, and now they're making money that they would never even get on unemployment if they were unemployed before the pandemic. So it's like, of course I would do that. But again, so it's the same thing with disability. A lot of people get really lazy because it's like, well, why? I'm getting $1,200 a month and I don't have to work and I don't have to do this and I don't have to do that. And it's just, I don't have to pay for anything. Like everything's great.
And it's not just $1,200 a month. It's free care for someone to come in and take care of you.
Yep.
It's very low cost housing.
Yep.
Transportation is often covered. So it's all the other fringe benefits that come with it that I understand it's scary to let go of.
It's a trap though.
But it also makes you stagnant.
Yeah, very complacent.
And it can really put you in a position of entitlement if you're not careful. And so oftentimes, like actually with Crip Chat, I was doing it once a week as a response to quarantine. And then I brought it up. I'm like, hey, if you, I'm looking at maybe turning this into a membership. And I did a survey, like how much would you pay for all of, for what it is that this community can offer a month? And I said $11, $22, $33, or other. And 50% of people who answered their survey said $11. And 50% of the other people argued why they should get it for free.
Yeah, of course.
And so I was like, oh, okay.
Right.
So, so it's really interesting how a lot of people, and this could, disabled or anyone who is at the effect of any systemic benefits, right? There's a danger in allowing yourself, like you said, to get complacent and to actually not fulfill your vision or your potential of what you were created to be, because there's so much potential. Like I said, I was like, well, this is a superpower of having a disability. Another superpower is like we've had to fight so hard for everything that we get. And I feel like if you're willing, some people with disabilities are some of the most mentally tough people in the world. Yeah. Because we've had to be, if we want more out of life, if we demand more out of life. I had a professor one time in college come up to me after she assigned a 10-page paper, and she pulled me aside. She's like, look, Pauline, I get it's going to take you longer to do the research. I get it's going to take you longer to type out the paper. So if you want, you can do 5 pages instead of 10. And so I was like, it was like a fork in the road. This was a fork in the road on my character. And one of me could have said, okay, cool. I can just start taking shortcuts and like doing half the work. This is kind of like the lazy, easy human part of me is like, yeah, that's awesome. Yep. I have to like prove that do anything for this offer. And then the other part of me was like, if you start compromising with life will start compromising with you. Yeah. So the moment, if I said yes to that, I did say no, by the way, but if I said yes to doing only half, then when I receive half from life, I should not be surprised.
Yeah.
And so I think, that's something, yes, it is harder. And I told her, I said, yes, it is going to be harder. Yes, it's going to take me more time. Yes, it could be painful because to have to type with a stick between my shoulder and my chin hurts my neck. Yes, to all of those things. Those are all true. And I want to be held to the same standards, if not higher, than everybody else.
Yeah.
Because I know I can be.
It could be very mentally crippling. Like I said, there's a lot of traps in it, and if you don't really, and this is how people become racist and so on. Like if you don't leave your surroundings and out of your comfort zone, you don't really explore and actually have real experiences with other cultures, whatever it is that we're talking about. As a person with a disability, if you don't get out there and actually try to get a job, like the sad part is one of the reasons why I do this is because I hate the humiliating parts of it and I hate all of it, but I want to make it, if we don't try to advance everything now, like everyone's going to have to continue, we're going to have to continue to go through this. And I don't want anyone to go through the shit that you and I've had to struggle to get a job and to live in this life and have a, quote unquote normal life. And so, we have to be, sometimes there's people got to sacrifice that and put themselves on the stake and say, like I'm in, let's go, like whatever it is coming my way, I'll take it on, and hopefully the next generation does not have to. Again, like I said, there's so many traps in it. If you just sit around and collect disability all day, and that is a real stigma on us. That's a real thing that people think about when they hear our oh, you're disabled, so you just sit around and collect disability. It's like, yeah, there are some of us that do that shit, but that's not all of us. Some of us have disability and still work. Some of us work without disabilities, whatever. Some people never got it in the first place. They should have, and blah, blah. But regardless, if we don't get out and try, the world is scary, especially for us who are, lacking something. Sure, it's very scary, and there's a lot of moments that are going to really tempt you emotionally and mentally and physically. But if you just continue to just say, no, I'm going, I'll take that 5-page paper instead of 10. It's gonna work for you then. But again, how are you ever gonna push yourself to the point where you can accept yourself and love yourself if you're just gonna continue to take shortcuts your whole life and continue to just take the easy way out? Because being disabled is not the easy way out, no matter how you look at it. And you already have it hard. And I know it sucks to add more on your plate, but you just can, when you get the longer you go with this. And again, I'm sure you've battled a lot of mental health yourself, because we all do. The longer this goes on, the more you overcome, and the more times you get kicked on your ass, the next time you get up, it doesn't hurt as much, and you become stronger, whether it's your skin is thicker or you just, things don't hurt your feelings as much or whatever. But you just it's always taking 2 steps forward and 1 step backward. It's not the other way around. You're gonna have setbacks. And you're going to have days where you're like, oh, shit, I'm not, my disability is just kicking my ass today, or whatever it is. But that's the 1 step backwards. But at least you're not taking months and weeks to recover. You're getting up maybe the next morning and feeling good about yourself, where yesterday you were just super depressed. And that's kind of, that's how you do it. You just keep pushing. But if you just sit around and feel sorry for yourself, and again, we all go through that stage. That's a stage we go through. But if it lasts years upon years, yeah, it's hard to get you out of it, because you've been in this trap for so long. And again, that's why I really
and the fact that I've done it in the past. I can go to the dark, be in it, feel it, process it, and then come out.
Yeah,
that's evidence that I can do it again.
Sure.
So when those dark days happen, when those dark moments happen, it's okay, this is part of the process. And in a way, it's I invite those moments, because those are the only moments where I grow.
Yeah.
Those are the only moments I'm a believer that I know I'm closest to God. When I feel like I can't do this anymore, or why does this have to be so hard? That's when it's I can feel the peace of God going, it's okay. That there's this is, I was talking to a friend of mine, and this is the price we have to pay. This is the price we pay to be able to live a life that people can say, wow, if she can do it, I can do it too. And, I've always kind of had an issue with that, feeling of oh, I hate that saying, if I can do it, so can you. But,
yeah.
People hear me. People can hear my voice. People can hear the wisdom and the energy behind my voice.
Mm-hmm.
because I have been there, because I've had to go to the dark and been able to come out of it. And so, there's beauty in that struggle, because only in the struggles can we really see what we're really made out of.
Yeah. Yeah. I've kind of equated it to like, being at the bottom of like the steps in your house, like your basement steps. But when you go to look up at the steps to try to look where the door is or where the steps end, they never end. The steps are, so it just looks so hard to overcome. It's like, how am I ever going to make it up there? It's so far. Like it's a giant mountain. I can't climb that. I'm not prepared for this. Like, I'm really at my lowest. I hate myself. There's everything about life right now sucks. How am I getting all the way up there? And we do. And there's just another, we just dig deep into a place in our mind or our body that we didn't even think exist. And it only comes out when our backs are against the wall and we're at the worst place. And again, unfortunately, there are a bunch of us that don't make it out. And there are people that really die over this stuff. And I attempted to a long time ago, but and that's really sad. And I don't begrudge them. I understand what it is. It sucks. But the ones who make it out, like you and I, we're very fortunate to just pull ourselves through that. It is a very beautiful thing. And that's why, like, I will always, like, just meeting a person like you, I will always have some sort of love and care for you, even though I don't know you that well, because I understand what it takes to get that out. It is not easy. And sometimes it just happens instantaneously and you don't know where it comes from. And again, the fact that are a survivor, you're not wearing a shirt saying I'm a survivor, you just are, and you survive every day and you overcome. And it's something that it is such an underrated quality that people like us have, because it's not easy to just take on the world and take on everything. Again, like the house with the doors and no windows, we have to try so hard to do everything. And sometimes we just want to wake up and go, man, I want to make my toast. Just, can it come out perfectly? Because I'm tired of trying so hard at everything. Can the toast just come perfectly brown? Like, you just get tired of every little thing being a challenge, that sometimes you just want something to just go right, even if it's this most simple, mundane, chore. But even when it doesn't, we may get mad, we may yell and curse and whatever, but we'll get over it. And, we'll learn from it, and we just keep going. And that's, like I said, it's some of our superpowers and our best qualities that we just have. It's, and it when you meet someone who's been through similar situations, like, it's like, like you just, like I said, I fall in love with it because I know how hard it is to get to where you are, even though we're two totally different people, two totally different genders, and two totally different conditions, and so on and so on. But there's still a lot of similarities, and it's like it's the challenges that keep us going. Sometimes I kind of thrive in it. I try not to look over my shoulder as much anymore. Like, when is the bad thing coming? I still do it, but it's like when something does happen, it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to overcome this. Because there's days where I look at myself more so lately, and I go, how the hell are you still standing? Like, seriously, mentally, like, how are you still here?
Right.
Like, seriously, I know you tried to do it and all that, but you have you are still here, and then you take on other people's pains. Like, why are you still going? Because I don't know where it comes from, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I literally have this inner monologue with myself. Like, how? Where is this?
Well, it's choice. I mean, really what it comes down to, whether you have a disability or not, your quality of your life is choice. Yeah. It's about what you choose to focus on. It's about what you choose to put your attention to. It's about what you choose, how you choose to be able to perceive your situation.
Yeah.
It's about choosing to work on yourself. It all comes down to choice. And I know that sounds so simple, and yet oftentimes the most simple is the most difficult, because people think, well, it can't just be that simple. I should be having to talk to a therapist like 100 hours before I get to that point. But it is that simple. It's just like I said earlier when it came to my driving. It was the decision. The moment I made a decision, even when we had to go to the other side of the island with all our stuff and all the kids, and like it was a decision to say, this is what's happening. I don't care how or who needs to show up or what it's going to look like, but this is what's happening. And what you have decided, TJ, is that you are worthy of a life that is worth living and that you have something to contribute to the world. And you do that and you express that through your podcast. Mm-hmm. You know, how many people want to express themselves? Whether you, again, disability aside, how many people have a message inside them and never do anything to proclaim it, to say it, to declare it, because they're scared of what people will think about them. They're scared about failing. They're scared about probably maybe success, right? So their fears are bigger than their commitment to their message. Whereas for you, for me, our commitment and our belief in our messages is so much bigger than our fears. Yeah, people might think hear this and be like, wow, they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know because they don't know how hard it is, and they're evolved or whatever it is, right? So people will judge our conversation. People, and as we move forward and what we do in our own businesses or in our own messages, we may fail, we may succeed. You know, we're putting ourselves in a position of vulnerability to try, and with that trying comes the potential for rejection and judgment and disappointment. And yet we're saying we're going to do it anyway. Yeah. Because that's what we believe we were put on this planet to do.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's so many people that just because look, do you think like talking about being molested is like fun? Like the first time I started doing that kind of stuff, talking about really personal things or like nearly dying with the condition I had. Yeah, it took a minute. And when I first did it, it really drained me, like emotionally. I had to like take a minute to really recover, like a day or two, just to like, wow, like I mean, I know it's all there, and I've talked, it's some people who love me know about this stuff, but it's like when I actually put it out on a platform where everyone can hear it, and now people hear my full story, or at least the really meat and potatoes of the story. It's really hard to get out there, but now it's so free to talk about it because I know there's a lot of people going through it, and that's why I'm really big on like telling, really getting really deep into people's stories and visualizing it. Because again, that irony of me is I'm a very visual person. I like to paint a picture for people because I know there's that one person that is going through, let's say an amputee who's struggling with it, and if I miss one part of your story that maybe could have helped them, regardless of how dark or personal or whatever it is, I might have let that one person down, and that might be their last chance of really thinking that they're not alone. And I hate to be that because I hate not to help those people because I've felt alone for so long, and it's so scary and so depressing, and it's horrifying. But there literally are people just like anyone. It's just we all have our little differences and stuff, but especially with the disability community, how rare your condition is. Even the one I had at the time was really rare. Now it's it's semi-rare, but there's people out there struggling, man. There's a lot of people who are amputees, and there's people who have one arm, two arms, one leg, whatever, and they think that they can't do what you're doing, and they listen to someone like you, and it's like, well, shit, she can do all these things. Like why? Like again, if we don't share these stories, and if we stop being so selfish and thinking it's all about us, and we got to realize like we can help people on a much bigger scale if we actually stick together. And like what you were saying earlier about one of the things that I've seen where a lot of people are coming out like, well, I want to spread awareness for Chinese women with dwarfism. It's like, not specifically that, I'm being, sarcastic, but when you do that, we're already split so thin based on condition, based on body part or whatever. Even like with, it's like with the eye community, like it's like, oh, I don't, I have glaucoma. We'll just talk about just glaucoma. Look, I'm not saying that there's not some racism and some sexism in that Yes, I'm sure there is. I'm sure there are more white people getting shown on posters. But let's be real, people with disabilities aren't really included, period, anyway. So if we start splitting it into race and gender and race within a disability and a condition, we're screwed. We have no chance because at some point we're just going to be down to two people. And it's like no one's going to take us serious because we're split so thin. And again, I'm not saying that those causes are not legitimate. I'm not saying that there isn't any of those things that they don't exist. They absolutely do. I don't know about it too much, but I'm sure they do. I'll take everyone's word on it. But we just can't focus on a lot of that stuff because that's exactly what people want. They don't want us as a strong 1.6, 1.8 billion of us together fighting is a problem. Mm-hmm. But we're not a problem because we're so all over the place and there's just a few powerful, again, a few could be 1,000 or whatever, but a few powerful voices that are speaking up, but not enough of us because too many of us are just afraid to come out and speak or are just, whatever. They're consumed by their own problems, which I understand, but we have to actually find others like us that are fighting because we are amazing. We're powerful. There's a lot of great things about it. That's why I love the Disability Pride Month and all that. I love stuff like that because a shame is going to be there. I get it. I've been very shameful of my eyes and all that, but, I know the good things I possess, and I look around at the world, and a lot of people don't possess those qualities. Don't matter their color, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter anything. There's a lot of people don't possess that. Like, it's like getting in the dating world. Not many people are loyal. Not many people are honest. Those are two qualities that a lot of people in this world don't have. People just tell you what you want to hear. I'm getting to a place where I don't have much of a filter anymore. I mean well, I want to help, but I'm just tired of the bullshit. I've had too much bullshit fed to me, and I'm just gonna be realistic and honest, and it gets me wherever it gets me. But at the end of the day, I still want to help and show kindness and try to do the best I can. Some days I'm not always the best person I can be because hey, I got issues. And I work on them every day. And because I'm not perfect, I never will be. My goal is to try to be as close to perfect as possible, knowing that I'll never come close. And I feel like you should always work on yourself. Like always, no matter if you have a disability or you whatever, no matter if you have any issues in life. If you don't, great. But I mean, you have some issues somewhere in your mind or body, but just keep working on yourself. Try to be the best person because, like I said, there's enough traps and negativity in this world that's just, it'll drag you down with it. You see a story about some 10-month-old baby getting molested. I've seen it the other day, and it's just horrifying. It's like, I don't want to watch this shit. Like, I know it exists because I don't want to ignore it because then ignoring it is what a lot of people do with us. But it's so terrifying to know all the horrible things that are going on that you just have to try to do your part to put out good energy and good vibes and hope to God that it changes someone else that can change someone else, and you just pass on the cycle to the point maybe we'll get to a place where, the population of shitty people is 5%.
Right. Well, and what you said in there is really beautiful, and I just don't want it to go unseen. Right, because we often will say things and the wisdom in what we say gets lost. And what I got from what you said is that you want to do this because you don't want people to feel alone, because you don't want them to not feel seen or heard or understood, because you know what it feels like. Yeah. And so oftentimes our personal experiences inform what we were created to do in terms of our purpose in this planet. Right? So, But when, and the other thing that struck me was that you share your story, but we own our stories. The stories don't have to own us. Yeah. And that is the difference between a victim mentality and a victor mentality. Yeah. The victor says, this is what happened, and this is my story, and this is how it's informing what I can do to help other people. The victim says, this is what happened to me. This is my story. I mean, the story has me. It's not even mine anymore. It's something that happened to me, and woe is me and why is me. Yeah. So there's a big difference between owning your story and having your story own you. And when we can get to the point where we understand that we own our stories and we get to create our stories, things happen to us, but how we how we react to them, how we perceive them is where the difference gets to happen, but we get to choose how we perceive them, right? So, you can have two people undergo the same experience. One excels and uses it to propel him to his purpose, and one crumbles and allows that the events to shape them in a way that doesn't really serve him or the world. Well, what's the difference? You hear all these underdog stories coming through. Well, you could have 100 black men raised in the ghetto, but a few will rise to the top. Why? Because of what they choose to focus on and put their attention to and work on themselves. And, so again, it all comes back to your choice about how you perceive things. And that if someone is listening to this right now and you're struggling and you're feeling that absolute despair and that darkness just overwhelm you, allow yourself to feel it. I'm not saying deny the human experience of feeling it, but then also allow yourself to ask the questions. What is being revealed about who I am and what I could do in this world because of this experience? What is this struggle revealing about me, about myself? And from there, we can often take those dark times, those experiences, to help others through their dark times, and so they don't have to go through the suffering that we had to go through alone, and there's a gift. There can be gifts in the suffering. There can be gifts in feeling helpless. But again, you have to choose to be able to see the wisdom within all of those experiences, no matter how hard they are.
Yeah. It's a stage too. We all go through the victim thing. We all feel bad for ourselves. We all feel like why does some people have it this way? Like you were saying with the God stuff. Like, why God? Why me and not anyone else? Or why? What did I do? I was a kid, or you were born with it. But it's a stage. We also we go through a stage where we're numb and we don't really. It's hard to acknowledge where people are more sad about it than we are, and then finally it hits us and it's like, oh God, it's overwhelming and there's just many stages to it. But again, you have to continue to push and keep trying to go forward. If you don't, it's going to eat you alive, and you at some point you're going to just be stuck, and it's just going to continue to get harder. Like I said, with the steps, there's just more steps continue to be added on because you're just going backwards. And you're not moving forward. And if you, like I said, if you don't, just don't make your life harder. Life is already going to do that. Your disability or whatever it is ailing you is going to do that. But don't do it to yourself. Like, don't mentally break yourself, because you're going to make it so much harder. Because, people are going to tell you that you can't do stuff. People are going to tell you that you're this and that and you can't do this and that, but you don't know that. They don't know you. They don't know your body. They don't know what your inner strengths are and your outer strengths. They don't know shit about you. So just try it. And if you fail, you fail. But because we're not all meant to do everything. Just because I love watching, sports doesn't mean I could do it on a level that, the top athletes can do it. And I know that has nothing to do with my eyes. It has nothing to do with my disability. It's just I wasn't built with a gift. You can work out all you want. You can run all you want. You can lift and do whatever and be super strong. But there's some people that are just naturally strong, and they're not as big as that guy over there who's built like a building. But the guy over there is a little guy, but he can lift as much as that guy just because it's just something he was born with. And, everybody has limitations. It's just ours are more visible than everyone else's. And everyone likes to, put an arrow on it. Like, your eyes, your legs. You can't do this. It's like, okay, maybe. But let me figure that shit out. But if you stay in the whole, I can't do that, I can't do this, well, you won't, because you're never going to attempt it. So you might as well just, you can't let that stuff consume you and just take over, because the mind is a really screwed up place. And if you can get, if you don't know how to rewire yourself, it's going to be a really slippery slope, and you're going to head to some really bad, rough times. And again, you and I know how that gets that way. It's, it's just about helping people, man. I don't know how to put it any other way. If you don't, like I said, I've been through a lot of shit, but I know I just want to help people because I don't want anyone to go through my shit. It's rough, it sucks, and I know people are. And every so often, you get a message from some random person saying, "Hey, man, you helped get me through a day," and it's like that feels so damn good because one, I didn't expect it, I didn't do it for that. I'm not gonna lie, it's very addictive when you do get it because it feels good, and sure, you would like to get it every day, but that one holds you over for so long, and it helps me just feel good about like the direction I'm going because your mind sets many traps and tries to take you down other places. Like, why bother doing this? Because no one's listening or no one cares. And you're this person who lives in this small town and, you know, no one ever wanted you or listened to you or any of those things. And your mind takes you to all over the place and it distracts you from where you actually are trying to go. And I don't know. Like I said, it's just, you got to try to find some focus and something to be passionate about. As long as it's not something that hurts people and animals, just do whatever makes you happy and, you know, whatever. Now I'm just
right. Yeah. Rambling. Look, life is going to have pain, whether it be your disability or the loss of a loved one or loss of a job or a broken heart from a relationship. We're all going to be subject to pain if we're alive. And it's part of life. And again, we can choose whether or not we see the wisdom in the pain. I remember my moment, my turning point of going from like just so angry and depressed and having suicidal thoughts as a teenager to fully accepting and surrendering. And really what it came down to was the message I received that day, that your pain is not in vain. There is a purpose for the pain if you are willing to look at it and be in it and really see the beauty of it. Yeah. So that's what I would encourage. You know, you're just going to have me on your podcast again in the future. We've been going for 90 minutes, but you know, so I've enjoyed our conversation, and
you want to promote?
For your audience, I would really love to invite anybody who either has a disability or is a disability advocate, you know, anyone that's really related to the disability world. We actually have a monthly group call called Crip Chat Club. So you can find us on Facebook in a group called Crip Chat Club via Zoom. And so we meet every second Saturday of the month at 12 noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. And each month we choose a different topic. And often the topics are informed by what the community said the day they want to talk about. And we talk about it from the perspective of people with disabilities and relevancy of people with disabilities. But really it's a place where as somebody with a disability, you can come. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to explain your disability. You don't have to be something different. You can come as you are and just get into the conversation in a real deep and meaningful way. And so we would love to have you if you'd like to be there. It's free. We don't charge anything. It really just was a heart project put on my heart as a response to the pandemic. And we used to meet weekly. Now we meet monthly because the world has started opening up. So people don't need the support and connection as much, but we still have people coming on a regular basis and looking forward to it. And there's activity in the group. And, you know, there's amazing people. We have advocates, we have content creators, we have authors, we have lawyers. So, like, it's really a diverse group of people with disabilities, but it's really just a safe space for you to be who you are and have conversations that are relevant to you.
Yeah, a safe space for people who just don't feel like they'll never be judged. They just feel comfortable is very underrated. Like it's very hard to find. There's like very few places in my life that I've been in where I'm like, wow, like I feel like I don't feel any worries of like my disability like impacting or like any embarrassment of like, oh, I reached for something and I missed it or whatever, little things that like only probably I notice. But
right.
It's very valuable to have a place where you can just be yourself and know everyone in the room is going to accept you.
Yes, but I am going to preface it. It's not a support group for you to complain about everything that's going wrong with the disability with the world. About, you know, it really is. I really hold a standard for the community that for something bigger than us.
Yeah, sure.
You know, yes, we have to live in this body and in this world that's not necessarily made for us. That sees us as broken. But I don't see you as broken. Yep. And therefore, you know, you don't have to see yourself as broken. And that's what I mean by having that safe space to like, wow, I can just be me. I don't have to be broken. I don't have to be a superhero. I could just be me and really air my thoughts about whatever topic is for that month. Like last month, we talked about money. Some months we talk about dating. Next month, in June, I don't know when this is going to air. So June 2022, we're going to be talking about systemic changes and what that would look like. Yeah. So we talk about traveling. We talk about a variety of things. So if you'd like to come and be part of this group where you can really contribute to one another as who you are, not what we perceive you to be based on your disability, then this is the group for you. So, TJ, I want to thank you for having me on your podcast.
Yes, thank you.
And if you'd like to have me back again, I'd be happy to come back.
Sure. Yeah. Like I said, anything you need from me, please. I'm down. I'll help you whatever you need. I appreciate you just being you, and yeah, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
All right. We'll talk soon.
Okay. Is the recording off?
Oh yeah. Well, bye guys. Yeah.